Hello and welcome to the Blue Monday podcast. Now in our 9th season, looking into the exciting happenings of Ipswich Town Football Club. My name is Benjamin Bloom, and you're tuned into this, the flagship show, available each and every week on video and or audio. So, for a sometimes irreverent, always informative hour or more of football conversation, make your Monday a Blue Monday. Happy Easter, Craig Finbow.
Happy Easter, Ben.
How's it going?
Yeah, all right, mate. Yeah, I've been on leave this week, so I've had 10 days off. I've had sunburnt head, I've had frostbitten lips, and I've got the Monday blues on a Monday night. So I'm very reliant on Ipswich Town to give me a bit of a lift going into the working week.
It's a good thing if you've got the Monday blues. You are speaking on the Blue Monday podcast. Joseph D. Fairs III, American flag, I think it says on Twitter, doesn't it? What's happening, Joe?
Not a lot, same as Craig. Just enjoying the ups and downs of the weather at the moment. Went to the gym this morning. It was an outdoor marquee, which all my stuff was getting coated in snow at the time, which is just what you need on Easter Monday.
Beautiful, absolutely beautiful. So, what we're going to try and do today, we're going to try and keep it light because... yes, today's happenings at Rochdale haven't necessarily filled the running order up with stuff to talk about. So we talk a little bit about Bristol Rovers and the Easter weekend as a whole. Thank you, obviously, to Richard and Seb, who did the live stream after the Bristol Rovers game on Friday, which seems a long time ago. So we'll do a bit of a recap of both. We'll focus in on questions, so you don't get to hear us ranty rant all over the place. If you haven't already, please follow on Twitter at Blue Monday ITFC, subscribe wherever you get your podcast, and also over on YouTube where you can get involved in the live streams post most midweek games, and there have been many. Craig, take over. Where are we with this? Game Changer 20 did more searches from what we hear. Estate agents and lawyers and whatnot are inundated with people doing searches with stamp duty holidays and things of that nature. Should I be getting excited about some searches done by a financial conglomerate on our training ground? It's the second time we heard about this.
Well, if nothing else, it shows that something is still, bubbling along in the background, if not decided either way. I don't think... pretty much anybody within Ipswich other than Marcus Evans knows what's going on, despite various people purporting to be in the know. I say all we can go by is that, that we are seeing that these searches aren't being allowed to expire, which it can only be partially positive, I'd have thought. So at least it's not dead in the water because, as I say, things are still being kept there in the background. Things have gone a little bit quiet for the American end, haven't they? Brett isn't liking. Well, he hasn't. To be fair, he hasn't an awful lot to like in the last couple of weeks, has he? So,
when you say like, do you mean pressing a red heart button on social media?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So he hasn't been inundated with goals and bits and pieces to flood our social media on. Obviously, hasn't stopped a lot of our fan base just tweeting him out of sheer desperation to get him to up his bid by a couple of £1 million just to get it over the line. But no, I think. Christ, as Joe said off air, we're just holding on to desperation that there may be something there. And I say it can only be good news that they are, refreshing these searches.
I had a choice there to sing Desperado or Holding Out for a Hero. I'll sing neither and throw to Joe Fairs. Joe, was it you who did these searches? Well, it can only be a few £100, can't it, to get the searches done? Are you buying the training ground?
Yeah, nice bit of real estate to develop over there. But I think Evans has already
nice American terminology on that. Yeah. What's going on, Joe? Because we saw the TWTD thing, and we hear about valuation as an issue.
It seems like Evans, which sums up his tenure in charge of Ipswich Town, is effectively just selling the club or deciding whether to or whether not to sell the club on just a whim based on current results at the moment. So if there's anything that sums up Evans's ownership at this time, I think that's probably it, that he's can't decide whether he even wants to sell the club or not. He's obviously got to at quite a stage, the fact the sort of papers have been with the EFL, there's these searches on the training ground. It's effectively at a completion point, whether the fees are totally agreed or not, and he still doesn't know whether he wants to sell it. And I think Stuart Watson tweeted today that he was at Rochdale for the game today. So it doesn't sound like a man who's disengaged with it, does it?
It does not. No. I'm sure many people listening to this podcast will have been told that a deal, I don't know, for property has been at completion and then just sat there for a while. Whilst people, you have such thing as seller's remorse. I suppose you can have seller's remorse if you can have buyer's remorse as well, can't you? We stay with Joe. The Blue Action guys were out. They put something up on social media prior to, I think, Bristol Rovers game, and then went out with a banner saying, "The blame is in your name, reform or sell," with the ME in name and blame sort of highlighted in red. I mean, look, just to be transparent, we often, as a podcast team, get asked to comment on the Blue Action positions. Obviously, we don't have a podcast position. So what's your view, Joe? And what's your view on Paul Cook going and having a chat with the chaps from Blue Action?
I think the position they've taken is fair. The reform or sell. It has to be one or the other. We can't just continue drifting as we are, because look where it's got us and looks where it's continuing to keep us. And if he wants to own a football club, well, then own a football club and appoint the people in the right positions to run that football club for you. Because at the moment, we've got a squad of 50, 60 professionals, all probably earning the wage, all earning a decent wage at this level. But yet we won't pay for a chief executive. We won't pay for a proper director of football. We've got an academy manager who's doing all these tasks for it. So these are peanuts in the grand scheme of things, and the club needs to be sorted out behind the scenes. That, like I say, I don't think it's a bad thing Evans owning the club. Ultimately, you look at the American money people that are behind it, and none of them have got anything like the wealth of Marcus Evans, and that's something that we'll really miss. Being able to, like I said, we've taken a 10 million hit during COVID, that we haven't had to sell players. We've had bids sitting on the table for some of our players and haven't had to sell them, and that's the luxury that an owner like Evans gives you. But he needs to run the club properly. This isn't a part-time job. This isn't a 2 or 3 days a month job or 1 day a week job. It's a 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year job. And the sooner he realises that, the better things will be. But if the penny hasn't dropped after 13 years, will it ever drop? And with regards to Cook, I think it's good that he went out there and spoke to the Blue Action guys. I haven't read what he said, other than I think it was effectively, look, we're trying here, help us out, maybe leave it until the end of the season. But this isn't a problem that's going to go away if we do, by some miracle, make the playoffs. It's still a problem in the ownership, and we're just relying on Paul Cook being the manager that can run the club like Mick McCarthy used to in the first few years of his tenure before things went wrong. A manager that can hide a bad owner. Well, why can't we have a good manager and an owner who does the right things?
Craig?
Yeah, I get that Cook wants everyone on the same page, and he doesn't want this affecting the players unduly. But I can't imagine that the players took one iota of notice on a banner that was stuck outside the gates of the ground as they went in. It's not as if the guys are in the ground creating a bad atmosphere. The players are handling that particularly well themselves. So I just don't. Cook doesn't have the history. Appreciate he's only been here for a little while, isn't he? So he doesn't really have the history of Joe was saying what's been going on. Yeah, and I appreciate he does understand it from a fan's perspective, but just historically, this isn't an overnight decision by these guys and everyone else to support them, is it? It's just been an ongoing cut by 1,000, whatever it is.
Death by 1,000 cuts.
Death by 1,000 cuts. Thank you, Joe. So I get where Cook's coming from, but I don't really think it is affecting anybody unduly. They're just making themselves seen, making themselves known. Nothing's happening in the ground maybe it is affecting performances, but there's nothing in the grounds to affect any atmosphere or any playing conditions, I wouldn't have thought.
On April Fool's Day, and we're going to try and not overreact and go all outrage on this. The club put out a story about data-led recruitment, and we had some quotes. A lot of the bigger clubs are using data and statistics as part of their recruitment. The days of just going off someone's opinion are gone, or are going rather. We will be doing a lot more profiling on players than we've ever done before. As I said, we'll go to you, Craig. We don't want to go into outrage mode and assume this means that we've been sending an 80-year-old guy with a flat cap and a dog to watch Billericay reserves and leave on the 50th minute and go, I've seen all I need to see, son. Sign him up. But, oh, God, I went Paul Cook then, and I've done my throat then. By the way, I'm worried about Paul Cook's vocal cords. We'll talk about that in a minute. But this was a bit embarrassing, wasn't it, Craig? The, this idea of, we had this with sports science as well, this idea of, we're going to start using data to identify players. And, if we'd heard this in, 2007, we might have been a bit excited. But outrage aside, what was your view on this?
Well, it's pretty much as you say, isn't it? It's just embarrassing. The reason why they actually feel the need to go out and market this as a plus point, that we're so behind the curve in all of these sort of things that just do it, keep it under your hats, and we'll just assume it's being done and has been done in the past regardless. Even when Leo Neal came out and said something on the lines of Charlie Wyke has got X amount of goals, but Aidan McGeady's got a dozen assists or something. Well, bloody hell. Okay, well, if that's
Aidan McGeady, who's played 500 games and is the most obvious eye test player you'd ever see in your life. Sorry, Craig.
Yeah, but if all they're going to do is look at assists and goals, then well,
Alan Judge in 2013-14 topped every championship metric you've got, didn't he?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, well, that's as I said on Twitter. If you look in your search engine on Joe's FM database and look for, vision and passing, player, and soon to be out of contract, Alan Judge's face appears on your screen. So I don't know. As with all of these things, it will depend on the investment, won't it? It will depend on a what level of investment it is, and B, what use we get out of it and what sort of people are looking into it. And same with anything, you only get out what you put into these things. So if it's going to be another half-assed attempt at it, like it was with the sports science, and the sports science went as far as getting GPS trackers in the vest of the players and a big square on the side of the pitch to track them. Well, that hasn't really fixed much, has it? So it's all very well saying these things and doing these things 10, 12 years later than everyone else, but you've still got to make a decent stab of it.
Joe, what's your thoughts? Does this reveal on anything about weak practices up to now, or nothing we didn't know already?
I'd just be interested to know how much of it is going on behind the scenes already, because it seems like Leo Neal has a habit of talking about these things and just over talking about them, because I can't believe that we're not doing any form of data analysis at the moment. We've got data analysts who work for the club. We've got performance analysts that work for the club. Well, what are they doing if they're not analysing data of opposition or players for the transfer market? But
maybe saying that data analysis, Joe, has not been used for recruitment. It's just been used to look at our own players. I don't know. Possibly,
but like I say, the things that Leo Neal says, there's teams in like the National League South that are doing the stuff that's spoken about there. Like Craig was talking about the GPS vests. Mick McCarthy didn't like them. Fair enough, he'd been the manager a long time. But again, there were teams in the National League that had that technology at their place, and we see it as like cutting edge technology. It's like we'll be talking about, I don't know, the wheel soon.
Thing is, with data is, you could look at data and say James Norwood scored a hatful of goals, but then it doesn't tell you about and I'm not picking out James Norwood because of it, but about the character behind the data, does it? How we're talking about, and I'm sure we'll get to the questions, it's about refreshing the squad in bits and pieces. A lot of it's about character, isn't it? And what can you tell from data on a character? Can you tell that, yes, he'll score you a dozen goals a season, but he'll be clambering off the roof of his Range Rover to try and get in a locked house and, not potentially looking after himself and getting injured all the time. there's only so much that data will tell you as well.
Well, and Craig, also, data is secondary. So if I'm Luton, and let's be honest, I think you know him as well, Joe. We know someone who works for Luton in analytics. I know immediately how Luton play. So if I want to sign a Luton fullback, I need someone who's getting up the pitch and good on transition, or a central midfielder who who's going to do the pressing things that we know they do and move the ball quickly. And you're looking at short pass numbers and that passes per defensive action that kind of measures pressing. And Luton particularly just brought the guy in from Walsall, who is a division down from us, and we've been in need of a big striker. And there goes one through to Luton, Adebayo, scoring goals. But data's kind of secondary, Joe, isn't it? Because what data are you looking for?
Yeah, you need to know what you're looking
on what
for,
you're
don't
trying
you?
to do.
Yeah, and I think the problem there's obviously many different ways to recruit, but the problem is you need your manager to be sort of confident enough in his own skin to recruit the type of players that he needs. And I don't think sort of under Roy Keane we had that. Under Paul Jewell, we sort of just recruited anyone who was available. Mick McCarthy recruited a very sort of certain type of player that he wanted to bring in, and that was sort of high character, hard working, and they were his key things.
Or high quality loan, Joe.
Yeah, or high
I
quality
think
loans.
There were contacts with him and Bowman that
but
would do half of that, wouldn't it?
You knew what he was looking for, and the squad filler that he brought in were people who, like I say, we talk about someone like Giles Coke as being an embarrassing signing, but this is someone who is still playing in the Football League sort of 4 years after he's left us, and it's probably because he's got a good character and does the right things around the training ground. And after that, Hurst came in and just ripped that to pieces and went down a sort of lower league approach, which just has not worked. And if you look at his signings, it's difficult to make a case for any single one of them being a success.
Well, they were the ones that had played well against him. It's like Arsene Wenger signing Richard Wright, isn't it? For Shrewsbury.
We recruited as though we were Shrewsbury, didn't we? We recruited as though we were Shrewsbury who'd been promoted. Lambert came in, and I think some of his recruitment was decent enough, but it's just been just a mess and you look back at the January window and the 4 players that came in January, and it's just proven what a mess it is. There was no style to know what sort of players we wanted to recruit. So Paul Cook, he is a manager that, like when Mikey did the pod with the Wigan fans, the Portsmouth fans, and when I've spoken to those guys on Twitter, they know exactly what sort of players he wants. He wants two centre backs who can pass the ball, 2 full backs that players effectively auxiliary wingers, a tough holding player who can sort of move the ball around quickly, and a sort of player who can drive from the midfield and take it forward, a big striker who can hold the ball up, and 3 wingers who can create and score. So it feels a lot. It feels like we'll be going into this next window with a clear idea of the sort of players that we want to bring in, and that's probably the first time we've had that since, well, probably in the last 5 years now.
How's this for a sobering thought, Craig? So Brentford cast off Alan Judge to us because they had Saeed Benrahma, and kind of before that, a couple of years before, we were sort of in the same market for Brentford for players. But anyway,
well, another sobering thought is that Joe's just gone through exactly all those type of players that we'll need, and we're reliant on Marcus Evans getting them through the door.
Indeed. Well, let's have a little bit of fun, because one of my favourite parts of the podcast now is to talk about chicken. And each and every show now, we're going to be talking about favourite chicken. Look at that beautiful stuff. Now, Craig, we've got an issue with you here, because I'm trying to get Craig to have some favourite chicken, but it's a bit of a trek. Not only are you outside range, Craig, but it's a bit of a trek. So please tweet in if we can get some kind of pithy hashtag involving the word Finbow and chicken at some point. Sprout your Finbow wings. Because there is one close to you, right, Craig?
There's one in Clacton-on-Sea, yeah. But I'm doing my best to sort out a little breakaway scheme with the local chippy. So yeah, anything go to Winkies, Brightlingsea, New Street, Brightlingsea, for all your fish and chip needs. We'll see how we get on there. But no, so it's completely against my ethos to back something that I've never tried. But I'm sure Joe can do it for us.
Get in there, Joe.
Yeah, it's the same as last time. Good chicken delivered fresh to me, and those ribs that you can see on the picture, I got those chucked in as even a freebie on top of my freebie, and they were really good as well.
Outstanding. So favouritechicken.co.uk. Now, we're not talking about going to Clacton because we're talking about the Ipswich branch. So this is for our Ipswich-based listeners. So if you want 20% off favourite chicken in Ipswich, so from the Ipswich branch, we can sort you out with that if you type in the code BM20 when you go and place your order there. Brilliant stuff. We had lots of facetious messages. Yes, there's vegetarian stuff. Yes, it's wonderful. It's woke. It's beautiful. It's wonderful chicken. Get the app. Get your favourite chicken. And you're going to be watching those games, England in the Euros. What better accompaniment than some favourite chicken? Unbelievable scenes. Favouritechicken.co.uk. Discount code BM20. 20% off from the Ipswich store, delivery only. Right. It was the Easter weekend. I thought we'd do, because there's bugger all to talk about today, I thought we'd do just a quick little sweep of the Bristol Rovers game before. So if I can just take you back, Craig, to Good Friday and Bristol Rovers, a switch to a 3 at the back, a couple of early goals in this one, an own goal from Lay and a goal from Judge. Any Trailer Park Boys fans watch this? Mr. Leahy was the first thing I thought of. And that actor has died since Trailer Park Boys was filmed. Attracts a certain type of person to watch Trailer Park Boys. You'll know what I mean if you've watched it. Craig, thoughts on Bristol Rovers, a 2-1 victory, a switch to 3 at the back. Do you want to just give a kind of summary of this one?
Yeah, well, I think basically Paul Cook admitted he'd had enough of banging his head against a brick wall and trying to get his group of players to play the way that he wants them to play. So thought, sod it, let's just try anything to get a tune out of them. So I can't, as Joe was saying about the Portsmouth and Wigan supporters, this isn't what he does. He doesn't play 3 at the back. He doesn't play wing backs. He doesn't play 2 up front, but he does with this bunch. And to be fair, they didn't. I'm not entirely sure he got much of a tune out of them playing this way either. You know, it's not as if Ward was bombing up the left wing. Jackson and Norwood didn't really hit it off together. I thought Judge played quite well. Actually, Judge and Bishop playing just behind the front two did okay. Played quite well. Apart from that, DataLed had a poor match, as we all know. Wasn't really much to write home about, apart from 2 very, very early, very spawny goals. As has been widely reported elsewhere. Once Bristol Rovers scored, we just went to pieces. We just retreat back into our shells. It's, as I say, the guys in the East Anglian mentioned it. I think one of the opinion pieces in the East Anglian said about fragility, just fragile character. Cook himself talked about them being brittle. You know, it's there for all to see, and it's been reported on. I'm not entirely sure that's going to be great for a player to read it in print and hear your manager saying it. But it's, what else can you do but call it out? So it's there as plain in the nose in your face that these guys, whenever there's a tiny step, you're winning 2-0 against a team in the bottom 4. As soon as you concede a goal, you're just completely shot to pieces as a team as well. It's not just 1 or 2 of them just sort of deteriorate. The whole team just retreats and just shrinks, and it's just maddening to see.
Joe?
Yeah, agree with Craig on that. We sort of played well for the first 10 minutes. I know sort of the first goal was fortunate. I thought the second goal was a little bit better. It was a decent move, sort of decent ball in by Bishop, cleared. Shot from DataLed wasn't the best, but it was the case that we had midfielders in their box. We were breaking forward, men in numbers, which is what we haven't done enough of in a long time. But yeah, concede that goal, which was a sort of bad mistake from DataLed. And from that point on, we were just poor, really. And it's very difficult to comprehend how the confidence can be so low in the squad. And what is Cook doing about this at the moment is what I want to know. I know I know there's sort of some ingrained sort of fear in the squad or lack of responsibility, but at what point do we need to sort of say, you need to be doing a bit more with what you've got. For me,
interesting. So the win against Bristol Rovers. On to today's game now. Well, I mean, if I look at the table now, Bristol Rovers have won today. So I believe they finished they were 23rd after the game. And today, Rochdale in 24th place. So, and we've had Wigan recently. So this is the run of nice games that we were looking at. And yes,
this is the run of fixtures we had at the start of the season where we won 5 out of 6, isn't it? In exactly the same order, yeah.
Oh, interesting. Okay. So here we go to Rochdale. Joe, he's going to stick with the 3 at the back. So Holly in goal, Wolfenden, Enciala, Chambers, Ward, Edwards, Dazelle, Bishop, Judge, Jackson, and Parrott. Craig touched on it. You just talk about the shape and the personnel, Joe.
Well, yeah, we kept the same team as the Bristol Rovers game, bar Troy Parrott coming in for James Norwood. But we'd finished the game against Bristol Rovers in a 4-4-2 formation, 4-4-1-1, 4-4-2, and we elected to go with a 3-5-2, which was the case till probably about 35 minutes, where all of a sudden Alan Judge was on the right wing, Stephen Ward was left. Just an out-and-out left back, and Gwyn Edwards moved across to the left of midfield, and we'd gone 4-4-2, but nothing really made a difference to it. We were, I say, in that formation, the team was listed on the sort of club website, and it had sort of Stephen Ward as the left midfielder, and he's just so defensive. And if you're playing in a 3-5-2, you just can't get away with.
He was left back.
He was playing left back when we had 3 at the back.
Yeah, exactly. He was still playing left back with 3 central defenders, wasn't he?
Yeah, and it's just incredibly difficult to sort of work out how poor we were today. And it's just defensively we were very solid. They didn't look like scoring at all. They got into our box a couple of times, but I say you look at the stats there. Rochdale had two shots, both off target. I couldn't even remember either of them. They had a couple of decent breaks into the box, but they were well marshalled by our defence. The defence moved the ball a little bit quicker, I thought, than they did against Bristol Rovers. But there's so many attacks that just break down so quickly, and as soon as they half break down, the ball is back to our defence within 2-3 passes. So you have a quick break. Stephen Ward gets down the line. Edwards breaks. Edwards sort of has to cut inside a man, and then as soon as he cuts inside a man, he goes back to Ward. Ward goes back to Chambers, and all of a sudden we're back the other side of our half, and it's baffling to watch how little confidence there is in trying to actually make something happen.
Craig, would you have, given what Joe said about changing to the 3 and reverting back during the Bristol Rovers game, would you have done anything different today, or is there a bit of a sense? I'm thinking Gareth Southgate at the 2018 World Cup. Expectations are low. No one expects us to do anything. I'm going to play 3 at the back, and we're going to score from set plays and keep everything simple. Is Cook just got to? And we'll get this in the questions, Craig, about the contracts. Has Cook just got to the point, like Lee Bowyer's doing with Birmingham right now? I'm going to simplify this as much as I can and just get to the end of the season.
Yeah, exactly what he's doing. And he pretty much said it after the Bristol match, didn't he? He said, we're going to keep trying to nick results. That's all we can do, I think. And that's pretty much all he's going to do. He's going to get out a team of some sort, and then it was another attempt to try and get a partnership up front, because Norwood's had his 2 games in, so now he's got his 2 or 3 games out. Parrott was poor. We're sort of back to the Paul Lambert reliance on having better players than the opposition and hoping that they will do something off the cuff and out the ordinary. But as Joe said, that's not happening, because we're just frightened to take a man on, get forward, pass it forward. As Joe said about Ward, I was throwing me remote at the telly at some points. I've never known a left back to be able to go back so often with the ball. His first thought is to go back, and Judge has an unerring ability just to stop attacks dead in their tracks with one pass. and that one pass will just stop us, and then invariably the next 2 or 3 passes are backwards as well, and we're getting so far up the pitch and then ending up just in front of Holy again. And what's quite interesting, I watched the I don't know if you guys saw it, but the interview with Ian Westlake, the club put out, like the preamble to the match, and he was chatting for 10 minutes, quarter of an hour about his time at Town, and he's a little bit about him at Leeds and stuff. And it's quite an interesting interview. But he was saying himself, League One isn't difficult. It's a very simple
We've said
division.
It over and again, Craig,
exactly.
Competence.
You get enough balls into the box, he said, and the players will they'll make a mistake. They'll won't mark a man. They'll give you an own goal. They'll hack it clear straight to you. If you get enough entries into the box, you will score enough goals to win matches in League One. But we don't do that, do we? We don't get anywhere near the opposition box to get enough entries into the box. We don't get a penalty because we don't spend enough time in the opposition box. It's something that I'm hoping that Cook will be able to put right over time. But for some reason, this group of players, it just isn't happening.
Joe, what's likely to develop? Let's assume that he's going to stick with 3 at the back and this type of system. And like Craig says, if it's as simple as, okay, we've got an extra centre half on there and we should be able to not concede and simply, and Cook has mentioned entries into the box, simply maybe play the channels and just utilise the 3 up top, try and get Bishop up every now and then. What's likely to develop in that system with these players over the next few games, Joe?
I think you've got to change your left wing back, really, because I don't think you can have Stephen Ward as the man in that role, because like Gwion Edwards is not a fantastic footballer, but against Bristol Rovers, he was the one that he was playing as a winger whilst he was wing back on Friday, and he was getting up the pitch. He was helping us get balls into the box for the sort of first 25 minutes, half an hour, and it did go back after there. But you need the fullbacks in this system have got to be wingers. Like you see the big teams that play 3-4-3 now, it isn't with fullbacks as their wide midfielders, it's with wingers, and then the wide central defenders have just got to cover those spaces, and we just need to effectively get the balance between how many attacking players we've got on the pitch and how many defensive players we've got on the pitch, sort of around, whether it's 4-3-3, 4-2-3-1, 3-5-2. We need to be getting away from having 6, sometimes even 7 defensive players with 3 attackers. That the balance has got to change.
Joe, there's a really good bit of exactly what you've just said in Ruud Gullit's book about that. He says whatever system you're playing, most of the time you want to have you're keeping 3 players back and trying to attack with 7. And like you say, it's almost lopsided. Obviously, it comes from the kind of Dutch school of thought, but I totally agree with that. Let's just bring the numbers up. And Craig, it's the glaring one from today is the 0 shots on target from either side, and of course it's against the bottom team. Did you have any sense at any point in this game of us scoring?
Not particularly, no. Because we're offering 0 from midfield, we're offering nothing from wide. Jackson, we all know, can't play with his back to goal, yet he was sort of being asked to do it still and battle with his centre halves. And the only thing that was happening in the first half is that he might just get a nudging on a player and knock it out for a throw-in further up the pitch. That's literally all we had from him in the first half. Parrott was poor. I don't know. I hope Spurs fans aren't holding out too much hope for Troy Parrott to be the new Harry Kane, because I say he's not exactly pulling up too many trees in League One at the moment. His touch just seems to be off. His passings,
Craig, his reputation at the start of the season was huge, and the Millwall fans were so excited as well.
Yeah, but based on what though? I don't understand what it's based on. It's based on youth matches, presumably, and reserve teams.
He scored a lot for the youth, and he had played a few first team games for Tottenham. He was.
I think the Republic of Ireland thing had put his stock up, Joe.
Yeah. But he was really, like Craig said, he was really poor today.
Yeah, Jackson. We know Jackson can't play that role, and we did look a little bit more effective when Hawkins come on, because he did at least win 2 or 3 headers in and around the edge of the box and in the box. And if he's fit, if he's fit for the next 7, 8, 9 games, I'd imagine he will be playing every match, because he just needs to. Because we need something or somebody up front who can at least offer some semblance of traction when the ball gets hit up there. If Norwood's not going to be fit for 2 or 3 matches on the trot and then back for a couple and out for a couple, then it's going to be reliant a lot on Hawkins. He's not going to score many. The reliance will be on other players to score more. But at least if we're a little bit further up the pitch, it'll give us more of a chance for it to happen.
And Joe, here's the maddening thing. We're just bringing the league table up. If you're watching on YouTube, we'll spell it out if you're listening on the podcast. With 8 games remaining, Ipswich Town have 59 points from 38. They have 5 points in the last 3 games. Obviously, you'd be hoping for 6 across 3, but it's 5. And the gap to the playoffs is still 3 points to Lincoln in 6.
Who are dropping like a stone.
Blackpool are going in the opposite direction, as are Pompey, both with 4 wins from 5. And I thought Paul Cook spoke really well about this, as he has done, as football managers tend to, though, I have to say. When he said, our performance is good? No. But are we near the playoffs? Yes. And could we get there? Yes. And this is the maddening thing about all of it, Joe. And to Craig's point from Ian Westlake about League One, if you win 3 out of the next 4 games and add 9 points on there, 68 from 42, for example, you've essentially got 4 games to get into low 70s. You still get in there. What's your thoughts on that league table-wise, Joe?
I think this is just what's more frustrating for me at the moment when you look at the fact, like how we've just we're just throwing this season away. It seems that every single week we look at the table and you just think it's there for the taking. And I think we decided, or Marcus Evans decided back in November, that this season was just going to be chucked away by allowing Paul Lambert to stay in the job for as long as he did, giving Paul Lambert the January transfer market to bring in his own players, and then appointing Paul Cook shortly afterwards. But like I say, we've only picked up 9 points in the 8 games since Cook has been here. If that was 14 points in 8 games, which isn't a massive thing, we'd be 4th.
We did that at the start of the season, Joe.
Yeah.
If we'd have numbers.
Like I say, if we'd have picked up 13, 14 points in the 8 games since Cook's been here, we'd be 4th or 5th. And I think it just shows that we've had, I don't know what tense to put it in here, but probably say we've had such a good opportunity to get into the playoffs this season, and we're just ballsing it up week by week.
You can see from that table you got up there, Ben, the last 5. You can see when the Cowleys took over at Portsmouth, can't you?
You can, but Craig, even at the top of the table there, Pompey, not Pompey, but the whole Peterborough-Sunderland race, someone's going to win the league with like 84 points or something. No one's going to get 90, are they? It just feels. I
think maybe it's COVID as well, though, isn't there? This is a very strange season, isn't it, with COVID? And I think there is a reason why teams go on these long runs, and then all of a sudden, like Hull, they'll don't win for 5 or 6 games, and it just catches up with you at different times. And I think the
difference is these other teams have had purple periods and have looked very decent.
We've had one purple period, which was the first 6-8 games of the season.
Yeah, it's not as if we're knocking on the door and being unlucky. We're just nowhere near it. Just haven't been for weeks and months.
Interesting. Right, let's go into some questions. As ever, if you want to get involved in the questions, at Blue Monday ITFC. Thank you, everybody. You had a 2-hour deadline on this one because obviously we're recording on the same evening. If you're watching on YouTube, I'll make them a little bit bigger for you. If you're watching on YouTube, you'll also see that Mick McCarthy is trending on Twitter. There is a mention for dear old Mick. Joe, I want to come in with James's question there then, because you mentioned the lack of points under Cook. Obviously, we new manager. We don't want to pile in on Cook, and we know he's inherited an absolute crap show here. But James asks, is Cook at all culpable for the recent failings? Currently, after 7 games, has a worse win percentage than Lambert. Joe?
Yes, I'd say so, and I I don't want it to sort of come across too harsh, like I'm calling for the manager's head or anything like that, because it's far from that. But I don't think anyone. What position were we in after that Accrington game where Cook officially took charge? Were we sixth? I think we were in the top six at that point. But I don't think anyone would have expected us to basically pick up the 9 points in the 8 games since, to put in probably 4 of our worst performances of the season when you talk Fleetwood away, Gillingham away, Wigan away, and again Rochdale today. Those 4 away games are probably in our worst 6 or 7 performances of the season. And whilst we were very inconsistent and often very poor, this is probably our most sustained poor run of the season with regards to performances. Like I said, we've played the 2 bottom teams in the league over this weekend, and we've looked good for the first 10 minutes of it. So, and it's 10 minutes out of 180, and where we've looked good. And like I say, if we weren't going to get any reaction, then sort of what was the point in making the change if the fans weren't expecting a reaction? I'm sure. Like I say, every fan should be disappointed with what's gone on in the last 8 games, because I certainly am. I just think if for example someone like Kieran Dyer had been given the job on a short-term deal to the end of the season, and we'd put these 8 games together, there's not a hope in hell anyone would be saying he should be getting a job. And whilst Cook has got this brilliant track record, and sort of I think he's the man, and I hope he's the man, but we need to start getting better on the pitch, because you look at the league table, we've got a big opportunity here, and we're just letting it slide, and we're playing worse than we were before he came in.
Craig, I'll read one from one of our own, from Richard there. What's the best, worst way you've wasted £10 before today? Can I just say, I went with Shaylee to a restaurant in Brighton once, and I like to do this. You just buy the most expensive thing on the menu. I just find it funny. And I find it good to be reckless sometimes. I never want to be that guy who, never even tries to make it. And I had a £20 dessert. It was like a medley of all of the desserts. And people even looked at it as it was coming out, other diners. So I think the best waste of £10 was my half of a £20 dessert at a restaurant in Brighton that my lovely Mrs. Shaylee would probably be able to remember the name of, but I can't. Wasting £10, Craig.
Well, crikey, we were counting up earlier how many matches we've watched. I think I've paid for 23 matches this season on iFollow, and I can't remember getting too much value for money out of any of those. My little girl lost a £10 note out of her pocket on the way to get an ice cream during the week. I probably got more value out of that £10 than I did.
Did you tell her off?
I spent. Then I gave her another tenner. She's probably got the initial one stuck in her money box.
She's worked you a good
serial number. Yeah, I should have kept the serial number for that. No, God, we're not getting too much VFM at the moment.
VFM, love it. Let's do Noel's question. Joe, did any of you expect more of a new manager bounce with the players we have? Mr. Scale of Paul Cook's task really that surprising? Joe and I argue about the existence of the new manager bounce quite regularly, but we'll keep that private. I'm very grumpy about whether it even exists or not. But new manager bounce, Joe?
I'll let Craig take that one, because I think I've just covered
Craig.
My last question.
Well, yeah, it's concerning that Cook has had basically zero impact on the team, has he? Nothing has changed. The performances haven't changed. As Joe said, arguably they've got worse. No players have improved or taken up the challenge that's been laid in front of them, either those in contract or soon to be out of contract. Exactly the same failings that were there under Lambert are there under Cook. And I say it doesn't particularly shine a good line anybody, whether it's the coaches and the manager who are trying to get these players to play the way that Paul Cook's saying he wants them to play. He's coming out in every press conference and saying, I want them to play on the front foot. I want us to play attacking football. I want us to be getting in the box. I want us to be having shots. Well, Christ almighty, you couldn't get further away from that if you tried at the moment, certainly in the last 2 or 3 performances. As I say, I'm in no way am I laying any of this blame onto Cook at the moment. I'm absolutely fascinated to see what he's going to do with this squad over the summer and who is or isn't going to be kept on, and it may well be that some of the guys who are in contract just don't fit into the pattern and the formation that he wants to play. But no, we should have expected more from his first 8 matches in charge. The fact that it hasn't happened, doesn't shine great on anybody. And I really don't know whose door the blame lays at.
That probably parlays quite well, Joe, into Pete's question then. Pete Girling, I've seen a few comments suggesting the players might try harder if their contracts weren't being allowed to run down to the last minute. I find this odd reverse psychology, but what do you guys think? What about the mentality, Joe? Remember when Mick went and sort of Bersant Selena was immediately, finish the loan, play all the youngsters and what have you, and away we go next season. What's the psychology of players? I think some of them secretly just want out and want to get to the end of their contract so they can get shot as well, or other way round.
I personally don't think it will be the players wanting out, because if they've got half a brain, they'll realise what sort of situation they're going to be walking into at the end of this season, where in this post-COVID time where there is a lot less money in the game, there's a lot of teams. I know the salary cap was sort of booted out in the end, but there's still going to be teams, and you're going to be talking a big pay cut, especially at League One and League Two level. And out of these players who are out of contract at the end of the season, who of them is doing enough to earn a move somewhere? Who of them is thinking, well, look, his contract's up soon, I'll be able to get a decent move off the back of this? No one. I wouldn't say there's a single player, apart from maybe someone like Toto Enciala, for example, who he may be one that gets let go, but he's one that's actually playing well at the moment, and he might be probably the only one out of that squad whose contract is up at the end of the season.
And Joe, he might get Rotherham. Rotherham go down and sell Ihekwa or on a Sunday or whoever.
Team, no, is he? There's not a single player in that squad whose contract is up at the end of the season who is going to be getting a championship move off the back of it, unless it is someone like Gwion Edwards, who's a championship team might take a punt on him because he's had a decent start to the season, and that's literally it. But it's hard. It's really difficult to get your head around what the mentality of it is, what the mood in the camp is like. From what I understand, what I've heard, Paul Cook wants to get the squad down to about 20 senior players. That's about all he wants. Kieran Dyer in the under-23s, he wants about 10 players in his squad. And then sort of in the under-18s, you'd have your sort of 18, 20 players. Well, that's 30 professionals we're going to have on the books, if that is the case. And at the moment, we've got 50, 53, 54 more, including loans. You've got 26 players out of contract. Cook's going to probably want to bring in 8, 10 more players. So it is going to be a massive overhaul this summer. Whether it's the right thing or not to do, we'll find out probably this time next season. But there's going to be a huge overhaul, and there's players that you'd have expected to get a new contract. Maybe someone like Teddy Bishop, who's finally kept fit this season, has played. Generally, I think he's played pretty well this season. Players like that are just going to go, and it's just. And some of these players we might regret letting some of these go, but I think it's just what is going to happen this season.
The thing is, as well, as you say about Bishop, and to maybe to a certain extent Dazelle, it's where they fit into a 4-2-3-1 formation, isn't it? It's you're more likely if no one leaves, if no one's signed, you're more likely to see Downs and Nolan playing in the central two, I would suggest, because thing is with and Bishop potentially in a 10. The thing is with poor old Andre is he just slows things down. He just doesn't do anything quick enough, I don't think, for a Paul Cook team, unless he can get properly drilled into him to get the ball and get it forward quicker. He doesn't want it, just doesn't want that methodical, slower build-up type of football. It's just not the way he plays it.
But there's no one sort of to defend Andre. There's no one to pass to ahead of him, is there?
No.
You looked at the game on Friday, and at one point he gets a ball, first-time ball, over the top, down the line, and I can't remember who it was that got a decent cross across. And I think if the early ball is there to play, he will play it. But it's just there's such a lack of movement, lack of sort of pace ahead of him, that all his option has got generally is to take a touch, have a look, and see nothing to do, and then go from there.
Whose question is it? Is it Craig?
I think it's me now.
Is it? I just wanted to look at that top one, just parlaying into what you were saying about contracts, etc. Sean Young, do any of the starting 11 from today feature in the first game of next season? Who are you really keen to retain, Joe? If you're you, Joe Fairs, or if you're Paul Cook?
To start, well, we're in a position where we've got 2 goalkeepers whose contracts run to the end of next season. So I think we're going to struggle to shift one of those to get a new keeper in, but maybe a new keeper. Luke Wolfenden, I think if Luke Wolfenden isn't going away this pre-season with a really good programme to come back absolutely flying, then we're in trouble. But he should be starting. Sort of Chambers, you'd expect to be a reserve by then if he's still here. Toto, don't know if he'd still be here. Andre Dizelle, I think, can play a role. Teddy Bishop possibly, but outside that, I don't see anyone. Wolfenden and potentially one of Bishop or Dizelle.
Greg, same question.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Nsiala gets renewed because he's doing exactly what you want him to be able to do in League One, isn't he? He's stopping, he's throwing himself away in the stuff, he's keeping things far more simple than previously, which isn't a bad thing. He's not giving away as many silly fouls as he's been known to. So I wouldn't be averse to keeping Toto in and around the squad and potentially starting just to be that League One stopper. But then, as Joe says, you look along you wouldn't have either fullback at the moment, and you're getting nothing from any of the attacking players. So you're getting nothing from any of them, whether they be the wide men, whether they be the number 10 or the striker. So there's no reason to have any of those.
Just quickly, I just looked at the stats, goals in the league for all our attacking players at the moment, and I just read them out quickly. And this season, embarrassing. This season in the league, Gwion Edwards 5 goals in 27 games, but he hasn't scored for over 20 games. This is starts and subs. Caden Jackson 1 goal in 20 games. Jack Lancaster 2 goals in 17 games. Teddy Bishop 4 in 30, and again he hasn't scored for over 20 games. Keenan Bennett 1 goal in 22 games. Judge 4 in 32. Freddie Sears 1 in 21. Andre Dizelle, maybe a deeper midfielder, 0 goals in 35 games. Aaron Drinnen 1 in 17. Luke Thomas 0 in 5. Ollie Hawkins 1 in 16. Josh Harrop 0 in 11. Armando Dobra 0 in 10. Troy Parrott 1 in 14. And then James Norwood was 6 in 21. But you've got sort of 10, 12 players there who are averaging literally a goal every 10 games, and there are attacking players.
I don't think I need to add anything to that, Joe. The stats speak for themselves, don't they?
Yeah, and that's completely at odds with the way that Cook wants to play football, and what he wants from his wide men and his number 10, isn't it? It's completely at odds with it.
Indeed. Let's move on to the next game, and if you want a team with an identity, it's MK Dons at the moment, isn't it? I'm sure you've all seen the clips of MK Dons training and making 5,000 passes a game. And if you actually bring up the underlying numbers for League One, top teams in terms of possession, MK Dons top 60%. So they're not only top, but they're by a factor of nearly 10% ahead of the next team, which is Sunderland. And then pass accuracy as well, MK top of that. And in terms of a goal threat, they are the top scorers of anyone between 10th and the bottom of the table. So is there a bit of a sense, Joe, that it's kind of admirable what Russ Martin is trying to do here with MK? He might not have the best players in the league, but they very clearly keep the ball very well, and it's something that people are buying into.
Yeah, but I think they've got a very clear identity. They pass it about to death. I think, as we noted in the game where we played them right at the start of the season, and their 3 centre-backs look like they complete about 100 passes each. And whilst at times it's a little bit frustrating to watch, you can very, very clearly see what they're going to do, and they're getting a lot of plaudits for it. The only thing I'd say is they're getting a lot of plaudits for it, but as bad as we've been, we're 8 points ahead of them in the table? 5 points ahead of them in the table, and it's
MK
so it's a case
13th.
of...
Yeah.
They had 70% possession today and lost 2-0 at home to Crewe.
There you go.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like these teams sort of have this identity. People say they're good, and people say we're crap, and we're ahead of them in the league, and we've been poor for months and months on end. So they can't be that good. You might catch them on a good day, but ultimately they must lose more than they win for them to be where they are.
How does this play out then, Craig? A team that has got less good players than us, but a more, what should we say, a more practiced, established pattern of play. I'm not going to say better, because as we've discussed many times, a good football team creates a lot of good chances and doesn't concede many. However they choose to do it is immaterial. But how do you see this one panning out then? We're a bit sort of anemic. They're going to keep the ball to death. How does that stack up in your brain as a spectacle?
Oh, it's going to fall right into our hands, isn't it? That's what's going to happen, and we're going to shit out a 1-0 victory with 15% possession just to keep our hopes of a playoff place alive for yet another 2 or 3 days before we balls it up against Wimbledon. I don't know. It may work in our favour if they keep the ball and we can catch them on the break. I don't know. We just don't create enough with any sort of possession. So I say it may be in our favour that if we just get on the rare occasions we get the ball, we get it forward a bit quicker and react a bit quicker with it. Who knows? But I say it just depends who's fit. If Downs is around, there's rumours that Downs is closer to fitness than previously thought. If Hawkins is a little bit fitter, so I'd be starting Hawkins now. I think the Jackson experiment is probably happened and failed, hasn't it? He's another one that's out of contract, and people are saying, well, let's just renew it for take on the option to sell him. Well, you've got to find someone to buy him as well, haven't you? Rather than keeping his wages for another year, you've got to be pretty sure that someone's going to come in and buy him if that's the route you're going to take. We just need a bit of a refresh all over. But yeah, I think we'll win. I think we'll beat Milton Keynes, and then just prolong it all for another couple of days.
Do you agree with Craig, Joe? These high obsessive possession teams do tend to take the odd risk and leave themselves quite open sometimes, don't they?
I think, I just find these sort of teams, personally, I can find them quite boring to watch as well. I know we're not exactly a message in that, but it's like they spend so long trying to score the perfect goal that they just turn down decent opportunities to put balls into the box when they can. And the highlights may look great, but sometimes you watch the games back and you think, I'd struggle to watch it week in, week out. But admittedly, I am struggling to watch Ipswich week in, week out at the moment for totally different reasons. But we haven't got any. Again, other than the sort of top 3 in this league, we really don't have anything to fear against anyone. But we just make it incredibly difficult for ourselves by not creating chances and not scoring goals.
Greg?
Just saying about Milton Keynes, I was reading a bit in The Athletic this week, I think it was. They had an article about them. And exactly as Joe was saying, there was YouTube videos about this 20-30 pass goal that they scored and that every outfield player touched it, but they lost that match. And they were the reporter was talking to one of the stewards who watches the matches. Even though there's no crowd there, he was talking to the steward, and the steward was saying the same thing, saying, "Christ, this is monotonous. It's terrible to watch." As a football fan, it's bloody awful to watch because they will just keep it and knock it around. It's Paul Lambert to the extreme. He's taken it even one step further than that. And actually, funnily enough, Russell Martin was talking about the managers he's played under and was glowing about Paul Lambert's man management in the interview as it goes.
Interesting, very interesting. I was just going to say something really, really useful, and it's completely slipped my mind. That's not helpful on a podcast at all. Oh, God, completely lost my thread. Anyway, it'll come back to me 5 minutes after we finish this. We're just coming up to the hour, so we will call it quits there. Thank you, everybody, for watching and listening. Remember, we are sponsored by favouritechicken.co.uk until the end of the season. So if you are within the Ipswich area, 20% off Favourite Chicken, discount code BM20 at checkout. Go and get involved in that. It's been quite good fun association for us, but we'd love you to go and buy some chicken, etc. Craig, I saw you were plugging the Jason Dazelle interview. Do you want to plug your Twitter and perhaps that interview which people can find in the Blue Monday archives?
Yes. Fim75 is the Twitter handle, and it's just because we're reaching that end of the season. That point in the season where it's
there he is
on those days. And that shirt, it's not a long sleeve shirt, Joe. Inaccurate. And it's
we're
getting
Joe. I like it a lot.
We're getting a lot of on this day in history flashbacks. So towards the end of that 91-92 season, we've just gone past the Southend away game. So there's a few decent matches coming up in that respect. So there'll be a few more clips on YouTube, and I'll try and refer everyone to the interview that Jason did when he recapped that season. And
Joe, where can we find you on Twitter?
Just at Joe Fairs. Been quite quiet on the Academy account. It's difficult to follow things at the moment, but we beat Swindon last week in the Youth Cup, and Middlesbrough beat Swansea
slugs
on Saturday. So we now are away at Middlesbrough in the Youth Cup, and the tie needs to be played by Saturday week. So expect to hear something imminent on that, and hopefully the club will be able to. It'll be at Middlesbrough. Hopefully that'll be able to be streamed on YouTube or Facebook so that the fans can watch it.
Brilliant stuff. Thanks, guys. As ever, I'm sure you have done, but follow us on Twitter at Blue Monday ITFC. You can also follow me at Benjamin Bloom. Still plenty of championship stuff I've kept in there. Still waiting for Ipswich to just come back and join, and then I can. But not happening, is it? Not really happening yet. But do follow me at Benjamin Bloom. More importantly, follow the Blue Monday YouTube, where we do all the post-match streams. They've been going over well. Thank you to all the people who've supported via Super Chat on there. You can also support via the support facility on Acast. Just go into the Acast app, and that will come up when you view the podcast. Thank you to everybody that's done that. And Richard has put a little thank you, which plays in the outro after we are finished. And check out our association. We sound a bit corporate here, don't we, tonight? Check out our association with the Terrace Life. You can just go into the Twitter, and there's details of all of that. Richard's put that up. I think it might even be pinned on the Blue Monday Twitter. We won't do you a crap. We're going to work on, I'm going to teach these boys. So we're going to do crap in 3-part harmony. At some point, I'm going to teach these boys which part of the chord that they're all going to sing, but we won't do it tonight. And I will sign off after a 0-0 draw with Rochdale, saying, keep on listening, keep the faith, in the words of John Bon Jovi, and we will see you next time. Thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching or listening to the Blue Monday podcast. And thanks to those of you who have kindly supported the channel via Acast or YouTube donations. You can follow us at the usual places on social media, and don't forget to subscribe so that you get our new shows first.